Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever. 3 lines. And with them, the replacements announced exactly what kind of film it was. A comedy about misfits, second chances, and the specific joy of watching people who have no business winning somehow pull it off anyway. But the real story behind it is stranger than the script. Today, 15 facts about the replacements. From Keanu Reeves training like an actual NFL quarterback, to a pay cut so generous it's almost unbelievable, to the reason the most powerful sports league in America refused to touch this film. Stick around for the bonus. It involves a real Super Bowl and a strike that handed Hollywood the perfect story, completely by accident. The Replacements hit theaters in August 2000. Keanu Reeves as washed-up quarterback Shane Falco. Gene Hackman as the coach who believes in him. A team of misfits filling in during a player strike for the fictional Washington Sentinels. It earned $44 million worldwide, built a devoted fan base on cable, and became one of the more quietly beloved sports comedies of its era. Here's how it got made. Fact 1. Reeves trained like he was actually trying to make an NFL roster. Before filming, Reeves spent 3 weeks in an intensive training camp with a former NFL quarterback and a college coach. He learned play calling, 3-step and 7-step dropbacks, snaps under center, passing routes, and studied John Elway's throwing mechanics specifically to model Falco's physicality on an actual elite quarterback. He sustained a stinger injury during practice, a nerve impingement that produces shooting pain down the arm, particularly alarming given his prior neck fusion surgery. He trained through it. By the time cameras rolled, he had been living as Shane Falco for weeks. The physicality on screen isn't approximated, it's earned. Fact 2. The film was inspired by a real strike and a real championship. The fictional Washington Sentinels were directly inspired by the real Washington Redskins during the 1987 NFL players' strike. When players walked off, owners replaced them with semi-professionals, retired athletes, and players working regular jobs when the call came. The Redskins won every replacement game. Then, with the original players back, they won the Super Bowl, defeating Denver 42-10. The film follows that template almost exactly. The Replacements isn't just a comedy set against football. It's a fictionalized version of something that genuinely happened and ended with a Lombardi trophy. Fact 3. Gene Hackman almost didn't take the role. Hackman was a 2-time Oscar winner, deeply selective about projects, and he'd already played a legendary sports coach in Hoosiers. He wasn't interested in doing it again. The filmmakers had one argument. McGinty wasn't a loud Hollywood coach. He was calm, reflective, and motivated by giving second chances to athletes the system had discarded. Hackman heard that and changed his mind. His performance gave the film its emotional core. The comedy around him works precisely because he refuses to treat any of it as a joke. Fact 4. Real former NFL players were cast alongside the actors. The filmmakers didn't want football scenes that looked like football. They wanted football that was football. They recruited actual former NFL players to fill out both rosters. Jim McMahon, quarterback of the 1985 Super Bowl champion Chicago Bears, served as technical consultant, coaching actors on authentic play-calling systems and quarterback communication. Because the people in the frame knew what they were doing, director Howard Deutsch could shoot wider, hold shots longer, and frame from angles that looked exactly like an NFL broadcast. Fact 5. The injuries weren't all acting. Hidden padding under uniforms. Camera angles chosen to maximize visual impact without requiring genuine injury. But bruises happened. Sore muscles were constant. Reeves trained through a stinger injury sustained during pre-production, the same type that ends real NFL careers. The physicality on screen has a quality most sports films don't manage. It looks like it hurts because some of it did. Fact 6. The cheerleader bar scene wasn't in the original script. Added during rewrites, the sequence where the replacement players and cheerleaders collide in a bar gave the misfits an off-field texture the football alone couldn't provide. Writer Vince McEwen worked through multiple script versions introducing character-driven scenes, the bar, the jail dance, the locker room moments, that showed who these people actually were outside the stadium. The bar scene captures the film's central tension, people who don't fit in the polished world of professional football and know it. The fact that it wasn't in the original script makes it one of the most memorable sequences in the film. Fact 7. Reeves played the role completely seriously. The Replacements is a comedy. Everyone else seemed to know that. Reeves played Shane Falco as though he were in a drama about personal failure and redemption, hurt, loss, hope. He played all of it straight. The director later said Reeves grounded the film in a way that made everything else work better. The comedy is funnier because Falco takes it seriously. Without that anchor, the film might have dissolved into pure farce. Fact 8. Hackman played it as if he were coaching a real NFL team. The same commitment Reeves brought to Falco, Hackman brought to McGinty. Complete investment in the reality of the situation regardless of the comedy around him. When Hackman was in a scene, the tone shifted. The actors around him raised their level. The contrast between his measured intensity and the anarchic replacements generated comedy the script alone couldn't have produced. Something is funnier when it's happening to someone who refuses to find it funny. A man with a prior neck surgery training through nerve damage to get a quarterback's mechanics right, a two-time Oscar winner who nearly walked away from the role that gave the film its soul, and a bar scene that wasn't in the script and became one of the most memorable moments in the movie. We're not halfway through. Still coming. The stadium that made everyone feel like they were actually in the NFL. The pay cut that made the whole film possible. And the reason the most powerful sports league in America refused to let this movie use their name. Fact 9. The game sequences were filmed in a real NFL stadium. Most game scenes were shot at M&T Bank Stadium. The actual home of the Baltimore Ravens opened just 2 years earlier. Real locker rooms, authentic sidelines, the actual playing surface, professional lighting. The scale and atmosphere that a soundstage can approximate but never replicate were all present because the cast and crew were standing inside the real thing. Reeves later said standing on that field under stadium lights surrounded by cheering extras made him feel like he was actually leading a team. That feeling is visible in the footage. Fact 10. The play-calling language was researched with real coaches. McMahon and the other consultants explained the coding system NFL offenses use, combinations of numbers, colors, and words that communicate a play to 10 teammates while keeping the defense guessing. Reeves learned the system well enough to call plays naturally, in real time, as habit rather than performance. When Reeves steps into a huddle in the replacements, he's using real NFL terminology in real NFL cadence. The specificity is invisible to most viewers, which is exactly why it works. Fact 11. The game sequences were edited like action films. The football doesn't look like a sports film, it looks like a war film. Editor Seth Flom cut the sequences using action film rhythm, rapid cuts between multiple angles, shifts from wide stadium views to extreme close-ups of collisions, slow-motion impact frames mixed with tight reaction shots. Because the plays were executed by real athletes, the footage contained genuine physical action that the editing could amplify rather than manufacture. Real athletes, real stadium, action film cutting, a combination that influenced how football was shot on screen for years afterward. Fact 12. Test audiences wanted more romance, and got it. After test screenings, feedback consistently identified the same gap. The romance between Falco and cheerleader Annabelle felt underdeveloped. Rather than adding dramatic scenes that would shift the film's tone, the filmmakers introduced small specific moments, meaningful glances, quiet exchanges that suggested a developing connection without announcing it. Subtle enough to be invisible to anyone who didn't know they'd been added. But they shifted the emotional balance meaningfully. Audiences don't need a love story. They need to believe the main character has something worth fighting for, beyond pride. Fact 13. Reeves took a massive pay cut to hire Hackman. The production budget was tight. Hackman's salary was beyond what the film could comfortably afford. Reeves reportedly offered to reduce his own fee substantially to cover the difference. Some accounts put the figure at up to 90% of his pay, though the exact number was never confirmed. He did it because he admired Hackman and believed the casting would elevate the film. He was right. This wasn't the first time. Reeves had taken a pay cut on The Devil's Advocate to help fund the casting of Al Pacino. The pattern is consistent. Quality of the film over size of the paycheck. In an industry where that calculation almost never goes that direction, it's worth noting how many times he's made it. Fact 14. The crowds were real fans, moved between sections between takes. Rather than CGI, the filmmakers filled M&T Bank Stadium with actual people. Thousands of local fans were paid as extras, then moved between visible sections between takes so the same crowd appeared in multiple locations. Editors combined setups in post-production to create the impression of a full house. The result was indistinguishable from actual game footage. The crowd doesn't feel like extras performing enthusiasm. It feels like 70,000 people who care about the outcome, because the people generating it were sports fans watching sports action. Fact 15. The NFL refused to support the film, so the filmmakers built everything from scratch. The replacements received no support, no licensing, and no cooperation from the NFL. The premise was too close to the 1987 labor dispute, a chapter the league preferred not to revisit. No teams, no logos, no name. The filmmakers built a fictional world from scratch. The Washington Sentinels, custom uniforms, original logos, a different name for the league itself. Every element of professional football's visual identity, recreated without using any of it. The irony, the league's refusal forced the production to build something so convincingly realistic that most viewers assumed the NFL had been involved all along. The fictional Sentinels look like an NFL team. The stadium is an NFL stadium. The game looks like NFL football. The league tried to distance itself from the story. The story made itself impossible to distinguish from the real thing. And now the bonus I've been saving for last. The 1987 Washington Redskins didn't just survive their replacement games, they used them. When the regular players returned, the franchise had built something during those 3 weeks, a cohesion forged by people who had no business being there. The replacement players had demonstrated that the system worked, that the coaching staff could take anyone and make them competitive. The team won the NFC Championship, then Super Bowl 22, defeating Denver 42-10. Doug Williams became the first black quarterback to start and win a Super Bowl, throwing for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns in the second quarter alone, the most explosive single quarter in Super Bowl history at that point. The replacement players weren't there for any of it. Their moment had lasted 3 weeks. The moment the real players returned, they were released, replaced by the replacements. The Replacements tells a story about people who give everything for a chance that was never meant to last. The real version ends the same way. The people who made it possible watching the trophy lifted by the people who replaced them, from somewhere else entirely. Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever. The guys who earned it and the guys who got it weren't always the same people.